Have you ever stopped to think about how life, well, keeps going? Not just for one person's lifetime, but for millions of years. Turns out it's not really about the survival of the individual at all. It's about the survival of the entire species. So let's dive in and figure out how life pulls off this incredible magic trick.
So what's the big secret? How does species manage to cheat extinction and keep that torch of life burning generation after generation? The answer, you'll see, is a process that's, well, it's simple in its goal, but just mind-bogglingly complex in how it all plays out.
And this right here is the absolute key to understanding everything. You have to get this straight. In individual's life, that's just a sprint, but the species is running a marathon across millennia. So reproduction isn't about you or me surviving, it's about passing the baton to the next generation.
Okay, so from the tiniest little bacterium to the biggest blue whale, every single living thing on this planet is basically a solution to one relentless, fundamental problem. How do we not go extinct? It is the most powerful, the most basic drive in all of nature.
So, what is this process? Well, it's called reproduction. You can think of it as the biological engine that turns a bunch of short-lived individuals into this incredible, unbroken chain of life that stretches back across eons. Now life, in its infinite creativity, it didn't just put all its eggs in one basket. No way. It came up with two brilliant, but wildly different, strategies to solve this survival problem. Let's start with the first one.
All right, strategy one is basically a numbers game. The whole idea is to build a massive clone army and just conquer the environment through sheer, overwhelming force. Forget quality, we're talking quantity, quantity, quantity.
And the rules for this game are super simple. First, you only need one parent, no complications. Second, the kids are all perfect genetic copies, clones. And third, the whole thing happens at lightning speed. It is the absolute ultimate in biological efficiency.
Honestly, the best way to picture it is just like a biological photocopier. It just churns out perfect, identical copies, over and over and over. Sounds like a pretty solid strategy for winning, doesn't it? So let's zoom in for a second on how this photocopier actually works. For something like a bacterium, it's a process called binary fission. The cell just copies all its genetic stuff, then the whole cell literally splits right down the middle, and boom, you've got two identical daughter cells. It's so beautifully simple and efficient.
And the upsides here are huge. You can totally dominate an environment with your population explosion, and you never ever have to waste time or energy trying to find a mate. It's the very definition of self-reliance.
But, and this is a huge but, there is a fatal flaw. With zero genetic diversity, that whole clone army is basically a sitting duck. A single new virus, one tiny change in the environment, and it could wipe out the entire population in one shot. It's a massive all-or-nothing gamble.
Which, brings us to a really important question. If this cloning strategy is so blazing fast and efficient, why isn't everything on Earth a clone? Why did nature bother to invent a much messier, way more complicated alternative?
Well, enter strategy number 2, the genetic lottery. See, this approach isn't about making perfect copies. No, this is about rolling the dice and creating something completely new every single time. Now, this is the one we're all pretty familiar with, right? Sexual reproduction. It takes two parents, they combine their genetic blueprints, and they create a new offspring that's a unique mix of both of them, but identical to neither. And the key players in this whole game are these specialized cells we call gametes. You know them as sperm and eggs. Each one carries exactly half of a parent's genetic code, just waiting to be combined with another half.
That spark of life, the main event in sexual reproduction, is called fertilization. Two halves meet up, they fuse their genetic material together, and they create a whole new genetic code in a single cell called a zygote. And right there, that is where individuality begins.
So we've basically traded in that biological photocopier for a couple of decks of cards. Each parent brings their own genetic deck to the table, and they get shuffled together to create a brand new hand, a hand that has literally never been seen before in the history of the universe. Okay, so it's time for the main event. In this corner, we have the clone army. And in this corner, we have the genetic lottery. It is time for the ultimate showdown between two of nature's most brilliant strategies for survival.
And this table really lays it all out. Asexual reproduction? That's the hare. It's fast, it's efficient, but it's got that one fatal flaw. Sexual reproduction is the tortoise. It's slow, it's steady, but it has a secret weapon, and that weapon is variation. And that, my friends, that one difference is the key to winning the entire evolutionary race.
And that really is the heart of the matter, variation. It's the whole reason this slower, more complicated strategy has been so incredibly successful. It's like nature's built-in insurance policy against a future you just can't predict.
Look, if you can imagine a world that never, ever changed, then yeah, cloning would be the perfect strategy. But here's the thing, that's not the world we live in. The only constant in our world is change, and that's exactly where the clone army completely falls apart.
And this is exactly what makes variation a superpower. In any population that's got genetic variation, you're going to find a whole range of different traits. So when some new disease comes along, chances are some individuals will just happen to be naturally resistant. They'll survive, they'll pass on those resistant genes, and they ensure the survival of the whole species. That right there is evolution in action.
I mean, it all boils down to this one powerful idea. It's nature's insurance policy. Sexual reproduction is about so much more than just making the next generation. It's about protecting the future of the entire species, no matter what curveballs nature decides to throw its way.
So, in the end, we're left with this beautiful paradox. One strategy is a master of the present moment, perfecting what works right now. The other is a gambler, betting on an unknown future. It's this cosmic tug-of-war between perfection and potential, and it leaves us with one final thought. In the grand story of life, which one is the true winner?